to interact with you and answer. So
if you do have a question, there's a chat log there, so you're more than welcome during the webinar to pop down your question, and then at the end we'll be scrolling through and taking some of the questions and answering them. So please feel free as the webinar is going along to pop those questions down.
I think it's important to say that Rachel is also going to do another webinar next week, same time, same place, and continue this discussion. So, because we believe that mindset being such an important part of the whole, basically the foundation of people's success in life, if we wanted to devote enough time to make it worthwhile for people to really get a handle on that and really make changes, because for us to sit here delivering a message is fine, but we want to see significant changes that occur in your life, and we will feel privileged to be a part of that.
So well, maybe with that in mind, Bertram, let's give the listeners a couple of minutes just to write down. Hopefully you all brought pen and paper.
Okay.
To write down what are your intentions for this webinar series. So as Bertram said, this is an ongoing thing that we'd like to continue. What are your intentions? Even if you just want to do it for tonight's webinar, what would you like to get as a result of having listened in tonight? What would you like to receive for yourself in your life? And Bertram, perhaps while the listeners are writing down their intentions, you could set an intention. What's your intention for what you would like to get for yourself in your life as a result of listening in tonight?
My intention, because It's a Breeze has been probably a different type of company up to this point in time, and I've kind of morphed it into more about the aspect of giving back, but more importantly creating this community of like-minded people. That's really what sort of gets me out of bed in the morning. But I mean, the real estate, or the property side I should say, is now devoted to OYOB and Zingdi, and It's a Breeze has now become the more holistic company that looks after the well-being of people, their mindset, their health, their wealth, and yeah. So I guess from my point of view, my intention or my goal, if you like, is to just expand on that and grow that community of people, and really be able to serve that community in the best way possible that I possibly could. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The reason why I ask you guys to set an intention is because it is, and we're going to talk more and more about this throughout tonight's webinar, it's so important to set a powerful intention. And every day when you wake up in the morning, it's important to have that powerful intention, because the intention creates a space. It's like an opening. It's almost like you've created this area, and it's inside of that area that the magic happens. Without an intention, there's no kind of structure, there's no place for that magic to happen within. But if you set a powerful intention, then all of a sudden your reticular activation system in your brain starts looking for the answers. So your brain is the most powerful search engine. It's more powerful than Google or what's one of the other ones? Chrome, or I don't know, I'm not really.
It really is only
Google. It's more powerful than Google. So whatever question you ask yourself, your unconscious mind will find an answer for. So if you ask yourself, how am I going to create $100,000 more income this year in a way that I feel passionately connected to, your unconscious mind, your reticular activation system will go looking for the answer to that question. So that's why it's so important to set a powerful intention, because it just creates this space, and it's inside of that space that the magic happens within. So we might just start, we might get into it. Basically, as Bertram said, we both contributed to this book called You Can Live the Life of Your Dreams. Now, I wrote chapter 2, which is the chapter about mindset. And really, mindset, Bertram and I both believe that your mindset is the most important thing that underpins personal development, or connecting with your truth, connecting with who you really are, and living the life of your dreams. We believe that it all begins up here. So I read on Facebook yesterday, whether you believe you can or whether you believe you can't, you're right. So, and that's like quite a surface level way of explaining what's really going on up here, because it's actually quite complex. And I know that there are a few of you online tonight who are really familiar with what I'm going to talk about, but we're really going to create a space tonight where we can talk about things in depth from the beginning. You know, let's get back down to the basics, which is still quite complex, so that we can start developing a really strong understanding. For those of you who know this information, it'll be a great recap. So where I wanted to start was in regards to the different areas of the brain. So you may have called the back of the brain, you may have heard that called the ego, or you may have heard it called the amygdala. There's lots of different names that people call the back of the brain, but that's basically the fear center. That's the area that's dedicated to survival. Then you've got the front of the brain here, and that's the bit that looks like a cloud. And that part is the imagination, and that's where the real you is. That's where the real you is, your truth. Anything that you could imagine is possible, and it's that part of the brain that is really leading that. So unfortunately, Bertram, most times people only really get to live out of a space of that back part of their brain. Yeah, it's the survival, it's the ego, it's the fear center, it's all of those belief systems that you've had since you were 7 years old about who you are, what you can do, what you can't do, what you're capable of. And unfortunately, those belief systems are designed to keep us safe, which isn't unfortunate, actually. It's quite fortunate. But unfortunately, some people don't go beyond that. They don't realize that that's not who they really are. Those belief systems are created out of fear. They're created in moments of stress as children. And then to compensate for those feelings of inadequacy, you also put in place a whole bunch of compensating characteristics, which are characteristics, ways that you feel that you need to be to continue to be loved, to continue to be known as somebody that your parents are going to love and protect.
Like a mind virus.
It's like so that back part of your brain is imperative. We've all got it, and it will be. And your mind is unconsciously running belief systems that you've had since you're a kid. So it's important now to start to recognize, who am I being when I'm in that space? Who am I being when I'm in survival mode? Do I feel addicted to any certain ways of being that I relate to it, that I have to be that way in order to be loved, in order to belong, in order to get by in life? And a lot of that, as I said, will come from a space of fear. It comes from a space of lack or inadequacy. Or on the flip side, it's the way of compensating for those feelings of lack. And therefore, every time you compensate using those ways of being, that because those ways of being were born out of a space of lack, it'll only just reinforce the feeling of lack. So let's just say Bertram over here, he's 7 years old, and which he was once a long time ago. Where's Bertram? And Bertram spills a glass of milk, and his mum says, "Bertram, oh, you're so clumsy. Oh, gosh, why can't you be more careful like your brother Stuart?" And Bertram starts crying, and he thinks to himself, "Oh, I'm so clumsy. I'm so stupid. I'm not good enough. I never get anything right. I can't be trusted. Okay, I know. From now on, I'm going to be really nice so that mum loves me. I'm going to do everything for her. I'm going to be a good boy. I'm going to make sure that, you know, I pay lots of attention and I get everything right so that mum loves me." So it's like, boom, that falls into place. And that's a whole belief system. There's the limiting beliefs, there's the compensating characteristics, and there's the way that you feel that you need to be for the rest of your life in order to be loved and to belong. And then your unconscious mind will automatically utilize those strategies to overcome new challenges in your life. And before you know it, you relate to yourself that way on a very deep level. You relate to yourself on a very deep level. That is who you really are. When that's not the case at all. Who you really are is this space up here, which is your truth. This is your imagination. This is your intuition, you could say, is in that part of the brain. And it's quite interesting that that's at the front and the fear is at the back. So that's just a little opening, I guess you could say, and I hope it gets you all thinking, who do I feel I need to be? Who do I feel I need to be? Who do I feel, or who do I think, or, you know, what beliefs do I gather evidence for that I feel I have to be that way, or I am that way? Just consider for a moment that you are not who you think you are. You are not who you think you are. Isn't that incredible?
It is. I mean, it's extraordinary.
You are not who you think you are. If you can wrap your head around that, then you can start to really fantasize about who you really are and who you want to be and what you want for yourself in your life. The quality of your life is brought about by the quality of your thinking. It's true, because this is exactly what we're talking about. So it's even to the point that your internal representation, you might say, I am poor, I am fat, I am stupid, I am shy, I am lonely. All of those internal representations, if you think that often enough, of course, it's got to correlate with the type of actions that you take, and then the sort of results that you get and the way that your life ends up being. And then you look at your life and it is that way, and it aligns with the belief system, and then you think, oh, see, that is how it is. That is how it is. So just take a moment, if you will, just to write down some of the things that you tell yourself on a regular basis. What are some of the things that you tell yourself on a regular basis that you can now see you're really embedding in there? And it does show up. It does show up as being true because your evidence compounds those beliefs, but now you're seeing that it's probably, you know, what came first, the chicken or the egg, that it's probably those thoughts that then create those actions that then create those results. Just consider for a moment that you are playing a game in life. You are playing a game in life, and you are winning that game. You are winning. Whatever game you're playing, you are winning. But as you look around right now and your life is not the way that you want it to be, you think to yourself, that's bullshit. I am not winning. This is not what I want. These are not the results that I want. I am not winning. But let's just propose for a moment that you are winning. You are getting the results that you expect to be getting. You are playing a game, and the results that you're getting are you winning. They're you winning. But you just think you're playing a different game. So you think you're playing the game of, I want to be in an amazing, soulful, intimate relationship, and that you're losing that game because your relationship's kind of crappy. But the truth is, the game you're really playing is, I don't want to open up my heart because I'll get hurt. So I'm just going to give only this amount, and then I'm going to put all these expectations over there. And until he proves himself to me, then I'm really not going to open up. So you're winning that game. You thought you were playing the game of, let's open up, let's be intimate, and that you were losing because your results were not measuring up. But the fact of the matter is, you're winning the game that you're playing. You're playing the game called, let's stay small, let's stay safe, let's hold back. And you're winning. You're winning that game.
Well, we're not born to be ordinary, are we?
No, well, that's right.
That's right. We're born to be extraordinary, but we kind of schooled into thinking of these, as I said before, the mind viruses that kind of keep us in this small little box. We don't want to really break out of that because it takes too much. You know, it's like, oh my God, I can't do that. You know?
That's right. Yeah. It's really the boundaries of your own thinking, and they create the comfort zone. And it's what's beyond the comfort zone that's where obviously the juice is. You know, human beings will do more to avoid pain than they will to feel pleasure. But we relate to life as if the pleasure is inside the comfort zone and the pain is outside. So we want to stay in the comfort zone. We don't want to venture outside because that's where the uncertainty is. That's where the fear is. You know, that we don't know how it's going to go out there. We're out of control. We might fail. But if you flip it and realize that the pain is inside the comfort zone, you're in pain right now. You know, most people listening to this webinar have an area of their life where they're not feeling good. They're in pain. It's obviously perhaps not going to be extreme, excruciating physical pain, but just like an emotional pain of, there's something I want and I'm not getting it. There's something I want and I'm not experiencing it. I'm not 100% fulfilled. And that pain is with you right now inside the comfort zone. Let's just propose that the pleasure is outside the comfort zone, because your brain, it's like it's in a pressure cooker, and there's all this pressure because you've reached a boundary condition of your own thinking and you're ready to pop You're ready to expand. When you put a popcorn kernel, a kernel of corn, under extreme pressure, what does it do? It pops and it expands and it frees itself. So beyond your current way of thinking, there is a freedom that exists. But sometimes you have to come up against the sides and it's going to feel really unpleasant. That's why they say the breakthrough comes after the breakdown. Because the breakdown is when you're pushed right up against the sides and you're like this, and you feel squashed and squished and trapped. And then there's that pop and there's that expansion, and that leads to that expanded awareness. If you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. I like that one. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, the pressure on carbon produces the diamond.
Yes.
A diamond wouldn't be a diamond without pressure. So
that's true.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's right. Well done. That's good.
Yeah.
That the quote about the mosquito just reminds me of those jumping fleas. Did you know about the jumping fleas?
Yes.
So there was this experiment where there was this whole. Conchetta's just asking if you could just speak up a little bit.
Yes,
because
okay.
I'm so loud. Yeah. So speak as loudly as me, Bertram. So there was this experiment that they did where they had a whole jar full of jumping fleas. And these fleas were jumping out of the jar. So they put the lid on. Now, after a while, after this lid had been on for a while, the fleas were obviously jumping, and they were used to jumping up like that. But because the lid was now on, they were jumping and hitting their head. So they obviously thought, well, stuff that, I'm not going to keep hitting my head. So they started conditioning themselves to only jump to the level so that they wouldn't hit their head. Then when they took the lid off the jar, do you think that the fleas went back to jumping as high as they were before? No, now they were conditioned to only jump as high as so that they would not hit their head. So that's an interesting point. It's an interesting point.
Yeah, very good. It's kind of like what we were saying before about the conditioning that we encounter through our lives, and we start when we're babies, obviously, and we come into this world knowing everything anyway. But then we kind of all these well-meaning people go bash, 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 and as Dr. Wengar says, get all these mind viruses into your head and limit yourself. I mean, you're an unlimited person.
It's really funny because I've got one of my 3-day retreats coming up where I take people through these processes. And I've been speaking to people who would like to come to the retreat. But you'll find, Bertrand, that every one of them has some sort of excuse. And it's really interesting because I'm starting to notice that the excuses that people are making are the same things that are holding them back in their life.
Absolutely.
So they tell me that their number one priority at the moment is to live a happy and fulfilled life and to feel valuable, and that's why they want to come to the retreat, because they want to turn their life around, they want to create change, they want to start feeling happy and fulfilled. But I can't come to the retreat because my dog's about to have puppies, or I can't come to the retreat because the job that I hate has asked me to work that day and I can't take a day off. So as you can see, the people are not willing to really prioritize themselves and put themselves at the highest value. They say they want change, but they're not really willing to do what it's going to take to create change, which is to actually change. The only way to create change is to actually change, to do something different. If it's different for you to prioritize yourself, if it's different for you to put yourself as your highest priority, then that's exactly what you need to do. It was David Deida who said that it's interesting when people say, one of my priorities is, because the word priority insinuates that there can only be one. There can only be one priority. There can't be more than one priority, because the word priority is one, the first, the utmost, the number one. Yes. So he said, if your priority is sleeping, don't have children and then complain that you're not getting any sleep. So it's like, think about what your number one priority is and then put it as your number one priority. If it is your health at the moment, if health is your number one priority, then prioritize it above everything else. Don't, prioritize X, Y, and Z and then complain that you didn't get your run in and that your health is suffering. So, I guess what I want to leave you with from that little segment is that you are 100% responsible for the results in life that you are getting and those that you are not. You are 100% responsible. Now, Bertram and I have a lot of conversations about manifestation and about focusing, and what you focus on is what you get, to the exclusion of everything else, so that you're at cause in creating your results. So you and your results are one. Me and Bertram are one. We're the same. So because we're so linked and we're so energetically, there's no divide energetically. You are your results. So the results that you're getting are a direct correlation of you and who you are, and they're mirroring something back to you. So I want you to be left with, and really try and get your head around this, you are 100% responsible for your results, the results you are getting and those that you are not. I'm 100% responsible for how Bertram speaks to me, how he listens to me, what he says to me, because I am creating Bertram moment by moment with my perception. You see, if I was to cut Bertram open, would I find Bertram in there? Would I find Bertram in there? There's no Bertram in there. There's lungs, there's guts, there's blood, there's cells. Well, I'm not going to say the cells, but there's skin, there's all of that kind of stuff, right? But there's no Bertram in there. Bertram exists in here, within me. Bertram exists for me within me. And he exists for somebody else within them. So, in other words, I'm creating what Bertram's saying to me moment by moment with my perception of him. My perception of him is perceiving what he's saying. It's coming through my filters, my listening. I'm seeing him through my filters. I'm hearing him through my filters. And those filters of mine are made up of my belief systems. So depending on how I believe I am, who I believe I am, what I believe life is for, what I believe I'm good at, what I believe Bertram is all about. Those beliefs are going to create the way that I perceive Bertram. Does that make sense?
I mean, if people can get that, I mean, what an amazing shift that could become in their life, because the old saying, you point your finger at somebody else and say, well, it's all to do with you, your fault, and yet there's three fingers pointing back over here. But the reality is that we are, as Rachel said, 100%. Oh my God, if you can get that,
it gives you a lot of power and it gives you a lot of control. Absolutely. Because that means that you can create anything for yourself in your life. And it's 100%. Also about coming from that space of acceptance as well. Accepting what is so. The biggest mistake in life is to think that there are mistakes. There are no mistakes. Everything's unfolding as it should. So instead of sitting around pondering over why that happened or why that didn't happen, creating meanings, adding meanings to things that have no innate meaning. My words right now have no innate meaning. They're just words. But you create a meaning, you add the meaning to the words that I'm saying, and then all of a sudden, it takes up a whole bunch of mind space, because then you're pondering why that person said this, why they didn't say that, what this means, what that means, and having regrets and having guilt and all sorts of unresourceful emotion from the past that are tied in with those meanings. And that's really consuming a lot of what's going on for you. Instead of just thinking it's all unfolding as it should, it is because it is. Bertram is the way Bertram is because Bertram is the way Bertram is. There's no actual explanation for it. He is just the way he is because he is just the way he is. The past unfolded the way that it was meant to unfold. Why did my mum hit me over the head with the baseball bat? My mum hit me over the head with the baseball bat because my mum hit me over the head with the baseball bat. To be free from the constraints of the past, you need to untangle the events that have happened in the past and untangle them from the meanings that you've added. It's not the events that are still hurting you, that are still causing pain in your heart. It's the meaning that you've added. When your mum told you you were stupid for dropping the milk, you forgot about that years ago, but the pain of what you made that mean, when you made that mean she didn't love you or that you were not good enough, it's the emotion that has stayed with you.
Absolutely. No question.
Yeah. So to be free from the constraints of the past, it's really important to identify what actually happened and then the meaning that you gave it and to separate that out. And as I said before, that creates a lot of freedom. There's freedom in this. It gives you that control back. You're fully at cause in being the creator of your own universe by your perceptions, the meanings that you're adding to things, and again, the level of acceptance that you have around what's happening.
Because I mean, I've heard you say on more than one occasion the years of impression, between 1 and 7.
Yes.
That's where all this stuff gets imprinted into your mind virus, as we talked about before, and you almost need to reprogram your brain, you know?
Well, that's right. So as I said before, you've got those ages 0 to 7, and during that time, that's the imprint period. So we're literally imprinting on the brain who we are, what we can do, what we can't do. Now, you might think, oh, well, shit, that's already done. That was however many years ago. I'm doomed. I'm doomed to live the rest of my life this way. But it's not the case at all. Basically, those compensating characteristics that you've been utilizing, they've got you where you are. So just embrace them. They're okay. But any belief systems that are not serving you, any belief systems that are not serving you and that have held you back, just know that you can change them. You made them up at some point of your life. It was just so long ago that you don't realize you made them up. You think it's who you really are. So if you are able to actually shift some of that programming, then you can have a completely different life. You can be a completely different person. I turned 30 about a month ago and I said to myself, right, I don't want anything to be the same. I want everything to be different. From my 20s to my 30s, I want everything to be different. I've just reinvented myself. You know, I thought I was pretty cool before and I was really choosing who I am and coming from a space of resourcefulness before, that now I'm even, well, I'm just as cool, but I just wanted to experience something different. You know, who do you want to be right now, Bertram? And now, and now, and now. We only have the now. We don't have tomorrow and we don't have yesterday. It's only now. Now is where your power is. And now, and now, and now. You can reinvent yourself moment by moment. You can create the possibility in your imagination. You know, when you're going into a meeting, who do I want to be in this meeting? So realistically, once you've let go of the constraints from the past, once you've recognized that they are just belief systems and you are able to shift those belief systems, most certainly you can reprogram and you can start choosing who you are, who you want to be. Reinvent yourself.
It's liberating.
Steal some of your water, Bertram.
Isn't it so liberating?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, would you like to share, Bertram, the process that you went through when you realized that you were living from an old belief system?
I mean, I suppose it was coming to that clarity of understanding where all of a sudden it becomes clear that, you know, I'm an unlimited being and I can achieve anything I want to achieve. And I mean, when I said that to my friends, they kind of look at me with eyes glazed over and said, oh, here he goes again. But I mean, once you come to that understanding, which I suppose is an amazingly different kind of way of looking at the same, it's a different paradigm entirely, you know, to what we've grown up with and been programmed to think. But once you realize that the world is your oyster, anything is possible.
Anything is possible.
Anything, and it's amazing. I mean, like you sit there and you know, just think about, okay, I want to do this. Like I did an experiment over the weekend just to see if it works, and say, okay, I want a gift in 48 hours to come my way, and sure enough, within 48 hours, the gift came.
What did you get?
I got $56
Woo!
in my bank account. That doesn't sound a lot.
No, right? But it was a gift.
Yeah, I mean, it's just almost like testing my powers of manifestation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this comes to, you know, the point where we start to talk about your life's purpose. What are you really here for? Remember, nothing has meaning except the meaning that you give it. So life does not have an innate meaning. There is no meaning to life. You can't go searching for something because it's not going to be there. You have to give it your own meaning. You know, life, the meaning of life is the meaning that you choose to give your life. That is the meaning of your life. So if you sit quietly and really tap into your intuition and that vibration and that real light source, that energy within yourself, and combine that, you know, with imagination that we're talking about, you will connect with your life's purpose. The thing is that most people have those thoughts. They're aware of those thoughts. They're aware of those feelings, but then the little voice from the back of the head creeps in and says, no, you can't have that, or you can't do that. And then those thoughts become your reality. Those says, you can't do that. You're too stupid. You're not good enough. You're not pretty enough, or whatever it might be. Those thoughts then create your reality. If you spent more time in those thoughts of passion and purpose and this is what I want to do, and that feeling of light force here, that light force, that will guide you. You are born, according to Chinese medicine, you are born with the perfect flow of qi, which is a word, the Chinese word for energy. You're born with the perfect flow of qi throughout your whole body. The energy is free flowing. It's when you start to experience unresourceful emotion that the emotion creates energetic blockages around your body, which is dependent on what sort of emotion you are experiencing, will depend on what part of the body that manifests itself in. Then when you actually have those energetic blockages, of course, that increases those unresourceful emotions, and before you know it, you are experiencing dis-ease. You are having dis-ease, and you will manifest a dis-ease in that area of the body based on the emotion, the unresourceful emotion that you are experiencing on a regular basis. These states, these emotional states, are within your power. People think that they are beyond our power. I woke up feeling sad this morning, so I just am going to say sad all day. You don't have to remain in those emotional states. It only takes a moment sometimes to change the route that you take to work. Absolutely. But oftentimes it takes longer for that, the new route to become just as familiar as the old route to work. So, you can create change around those emotional states. But of course, we have that default programming that defaults to that fear space of the brain, and we automatically on an unconscious level engage that survival stuff. If you fill those gaps with really conscious thoughts around possibility and purpose, then there's no room for the default programming to step in and fill that space.
For sure. I mean, like someone said to me, like, when you're feeling really bad, down, whatever it might be, just imagine if someone rang up and said, you just won tax and you won $3 million. You're going to go bang into a different mindset, like straight away, right? Why? Because it's all programmed by this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, and some people think, but I didn't win Tableau. So, but the thing is,
I'm never going to win Tableau.
When you go to Anthony Robbins, I don't know if you've been to his 3-day course. What's it called? Unleash the Power Within. No, Unleash Your Secret Power is the name of my retreat.
Awaken the Giant.
Anyway, UPW, Unleash the Power Within, I think. Anyway, Anthony Robbins, from morning till night, like I'm talking 8 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the morning, all you do at Anthony Robbins for 3 days straight is jump up and down like this. Yeah! Celebrating. And the reason is because we don't celebrate as human beings, and adults particularly, we don't celebrate. So our ability to celebrate, our muscles tighten. It's like any muscle that you're not using, that if you don't stretch your legs, then the muscles in your legs become inflexible and they tighten. It's like that. Our celebratory muscle is stiff. We're like, oh, I just got a promotion. Oh, cheers, I just got a promotion, and little kids, I remember I was on a bushwalk when I was in Hawaii, and this little kid was running along, and it was slippery, and there was mud everywhere, and this little kid literally just jumped in the puddle right next to me, and I turned to my friend and I said, oh my God, I'm going to kill that kid. I've got mud all over me. I had mud all over my white sneakers. And then I thought, whoa, what is wrong with me? Honestly, like this little kid's just having a freaking fantastic time. I've got a bit of mud on my sneakers and I'm getting all up in arms about it because we are inflexible. We have stiffened. So Anthony Robbins, for 3 days straight, all you do is jump up and down. Yeah! To really stretch those muscles to increase the ability to celebrate, because the attitude of gratitude is so important. If you are full of gratitude and full of love and full of possibility and full of contribution and know your insignificance in this world and really value yourself, but also know your insignificance, and then obviously honor other people and be a contribution to other people, then your life will be a rich place. And that all comes from that attitude of gratitude, the ability to be appreciative, the ability to celebrate. It's so important to be able to do that. And so even if you haven't won Tax Lotto, every morning get up and celebrate something. There are so many things to celebrate.
Yeah. What did someone say? You fake it till you make it, yeah?
Fake it till you make it. The thing is with fake it till you make it, I think some people get a bit confused by that term, fake it till you make it, and they think that they have to, again, pretend to be some way. But I think fake it, what you mean by fake it till you make it is act as if. So the term act as if is like, okay, so if I'm single and I want to manifest this amazing partnership and I want a beautiful relationship, then I'd say something to Bertram like, hey, me and my boyfriend are going to Hawaii next year. And Bertram would say, boyfriend? I didn't even think you had a boyfriend. And I'd say, well, I haven't met him yet, but I know he's here because I'm acting as if in my heart. Obviously, you don't need to go and tell other people that because I think you're a nut job. But in my heart, I already feel that I am with that love, that I am experiencing that level of love already in my heart because I'm engaging with those emotions. I'm literally hallucinating, trying to imagine myself in that place. I'm acting as if I've already got the result that I'm desiring. Because if you act as if you've already got the result, what happens? Your reticular activation system it gets engaged. It's engaged. It's linking that thing that you want with pleasure. So it's going, whoa, I am going to go and get that. And as I said, it's the most effective search engine. So it starts filtering in and looking for ways that you can have that. Does that make sense? So whereas fake it, sorry, I'll just finish off that thought. Whereas fake it till you make it can oftentimes be perceived as I'm not good enough or I'm not enough yet. So I need to pretend to be a certain way. No, you don't. You can be whoever you want to be right now. As I said, it's a rebirth. It's a recreation. You're not faking it. We have everything within us now already. I have been sad. I've been confident. I've been a celebrity. I've been everything that I would ever like to experience. I've had an experience of being that way, at least for a moment in my life before. And I said to a client once, have you ever been confident? And he said, no, I don't. I kid you not, Rachel. I've never been confident. I said, so you've never experienced being confident. You've never been confident even for one moment. No, I've never been confident. I said, are you confident about that? Because anything that you want to experience, you can experience. You've already experienced. So it's not about faking it. It's about choosing to engage with that part of yourself and being that way and practicing being that way and knowing that you are enough just the way you are and just the way you're not.
Just the way you are. I mean, it's like, I suppose my observation, I'm sure you'd agree with me, is that people get stuck in that story, about this is my life, and they can't see a way out of that situation, and yet it's entirely possible to change it just like that. As we said, someone rings you up and says you want Tax Lotto, you've got an immediate mind shift.
That's right.
So why can't you do that about changing your life?
Well, there's a couple of things here. The way the world occurs for you is so important. If your occurring world is people are shit, people can't be trusted, people are slimy, they'll pull one over you, whatever. If that is your occurring world, if that's the way the world occurs for you, that's all you're going to see. That is how the world will show up for you. You have to shift your occurring world. There was this show in America called Pimp Your Home or something like that, and it was this show where they go to these shitty neighborhoods, the Bronx or whatever they call it over there, and they go to one of those neighborhoods and they find this underprivileged family and they pimp. They're not severely underprivileged. They're more just like a suburban family, and they pimp their house. So they, it's like a backyard blitz or whatever. But they go in there and they transform the whole house, and the house goes from being worth not much to being worth a large amount of money. And all of a sudden, it's the best house in the neighborhood, and it's in this shabby suburb, but it's this amazing house. Now they did this, and they went back and they visit the house 1 year later. Every single one. They did this to hundreds of homes. Every single one that they went back and visited 1 year later had gone straight back to the old condition, if not sometimes worse. And that's because the condition had changed of the home, but the story hadn't changed. Those people's story was, we are poor, we live in the Bronx, our home is not great. Their whole environment is aligned with that. All of their neighbours' houses look like that. They're living inside this really strong story, and that story is being, again, reinforced by their community, by their environment, and it's very difficult to keep a candle lit in a spot where there's no oxygen for that particular story to exist. So their story hadn't changed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's sadly how a lot of people live. But I mean, the whole basis of what we're talking about is to give people the idea and the opportunity to maybe shift their thinking.
Definitely.
So, and we would love to facilitate that if you could.
Well, if you can identify the limiting beliefs, like what we talked about at the start, and free yourself from those, free yourself from the constraints from the past, then you have this blank canvas, this open space to create a new intention, to choose who you want to be and to engage with that. Then it's all about changing your state, the emotional states that you are experiencing on a regular basis. Again, you are in charge of that. They're your choice. If you find that you are feeling depressed, try sticking your finger up your nose and singing the Mickey Mouse theme. You won't be able to do that without putting a smile on your face. So if you change your state, if you change your physiology and your emotional state, change your story, the story that you live inside of, change the story that you're telling yourself. Instead of telling yourself, I'm poor, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, tell yourself a different story. Change the way that the world occurs for you, and your strategies will automatically change. If you're being excited, then you're going to do the things an excited person will do, and then you'll have different results. And if you're choosing to be anxious, then you're going to do the things an anxious person does. Again, it's not as simple as I'm making it out there, because we've got this programming. And oftentimes you wake up in the morning and you already feel like shit. I know that. I can relate to that, okay? So I'm not saying that's not the case, but it's important to stretch yourself, get more flexible. You don't start yoga and be able to put your leg up here, You start by just stretching and becoming more flexible, and then before you know it, the new way has filled that space, and before you know it, you're madly, passionately in love with yourself, and you're living from your imagination, and you're thinking it and feeling it, and your results are shifting.
But I mean, the thing is, like, to most people, not to most people, but to some people, that seems like too far a jump. And yet what we're saying, to be fair, is that it isn't. No. It's entirely possible.
Well, look, I've got something attacking me here. That's my story anyway. I run 3-day retreats, as you know, and I've had, 400 or so people do those retreats now over the last 4.5 years. Yeah, and I've seen people transform their entire way of thinking within 3 days. So it's not a difficult process, but it's something that, as I said before, if you want to create change, you need to create change. Nothing will change until you actually change something. So you pick up a copy of our book, or give Bertram a call, or give myself a call, and if this is something that you want, if you want something different to what you're currently experiencing, start by having a look at what's going on in your mindset. That's the place to start. A lot of people go looking outside of themselves. I'll change my job, I'll change my husband, I'll change my my hobbies, I'll change my friends, but only to find that they create exactly the same thing all over again. They got rid of one husband to only create another husband that's exactly the same. It just looks a bit different. you know, is a bit fatter or a bit skinnier or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's because the mindset didn't change, the story didn't change. So remember, you're creating your results moment by moment. You're creating your job. You're creating your husband. You're creating how much money you've got in the bank. So if you want anything to change, it has to come back to here. You know, not changing yourself because there's something wrong with you or you need fixing or you need changing. Just creating a shift because there's something different that you want to experience. And in order to experience something different over there, you've got to be experiencing something different here because it's only the mirror. It's energetically linked. So I'm hoping that that makes sense to you.
Yeah. Because, I mean, this is where you want to be, but this is actually where you are. Well, hello. You know, something's got to change, right, for that to happen.
And it needs to change in here, isn't it?
That's right. I mean, everything starts and ends with that, isn't it?
That's right.
I mean, that's why we wanted to start with the issue of mindset, because that underpins the whole success, if you like. I don't know what the word success means. It's different things for different people. But, you know, if you want to make changes, the changes have to happen in your own mind, you know?
That's right.
Yeah.
So awesome. We might open up to some questions.
Yeah.
I've got a question here from Trevor Hill, which says, Rachel, how best can one be aware of taking 100% responsibility of who we are? Okay, great. Thanks, Trevor, for that question. So I'll just repeat that. How best can one be aware of taking 100% responsibility of who we are? It is a good question. I guess, first of all, you know, you have to believe that that is the case. You know, you might be sitting there thinking, yeah, I'll take 50% responsibility, but the other 50%, you know, responsibility lies with my husband or my children or my boss at work, or I can't take 100% responsibility. But I honestly do believe that I am 100% responsible. 100% responsible for the results that I'm getting. I'm 100% responsible for other people letting me down, because I created that person in my life. I create them letting me down, even because there's a belief inside of me that allows that to happen or allows that to be okay. I'm not saying that it's okay for people to treat you like crap. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is, if you take responsibility that you are responsible for that other person treating you like crap, you'll do something about it. You would not associate with the sorts of people that treat you like crap, or you value yourself enough to not be in that situation. So when I was 16 to when I was 19, I was in a very abusive relationship. I used to put the responsibility over there with my previous boyfriend. You know, he was the abuser and I was the victim. I was the victim and I was the martyr, and he was the abuser. Now I know I'm 100% responsible for the results that I got in that relationship. Not because I deserved to be hit and mistreated. Nothing like that. I'm still not saying that what he did was right. All I'm saying is that I'm 100% responsible because I believed that I deserved to be treated that way. I stayed in that relationship. I antagonized him. I used to try and control the situation, and his way of controlling it was to come back with violence. But I stayed in that situation because I honestly believed that that was what I deserved. So on some level, I was manifesting that relationship, because that relationship gave me evidence for my beliefs, which I already had before I met him, which were, I'm not good enough, who's ever going to love me, I'm not lovable, etc. So it was my way of thinking that literally brought him into my realm and had me allow him to stay there. So again, I understand that he is me and I am him. He is an extension of me. He wasn't abusing me any more than I was already abusing myself. So if you can really get your head around the fact that you are 100% responsible, it's a freaking tough one, Bertram. It is such a tough one. I'm not expecting some of you to be able to get this from one webinar, but if you can really get your head around that you are 100% responsible for everything that's happening in your realm, trust me, you'll feel right now you might think, oh my God, that puts me in a place where I'm out of control. But to me, it puts you more in control, because I can forgive myself for attracting Scott into my realm, who abused me for 3 years. I can forgive myself because I didn't know any better. I say, okay, well, I learned from that. I can make peace with that. Whereas if I put the responsibility over with him, I'd be blaming him for my whole life. What an asshole, how could he treat me like that? Whereas now I know I created him to come in to teach me something. I allowed him to stay. I can forgive myself for that, and I can accept it, and I can be okay with it. And there are some really big things that happen in life and some horrible things that happen in life. And it's really difficult at those times to take responsibility for those things and be okay with the fact that they happen to you. I'm not saying that this is easy, but if you can get to that place, you'll find that you'll be living life at a different level. And trust me, you know, when I watch the news and there's some things happening that I don't agree with, it's very difficult to think, okay, well, everything's unrolling the way it's meant to unroll. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be making a difference or making a contribution. If you have the passion and desire to make a difference, just as equally as that's meant to be happening is as equally as you are meant to feel compelled to make a difference. It's all unrolling as it should.
Because, I mean, as Dr. John DiMartini will say, you know, when something negative happens, let's not use the word bad, because there's no such thing really, as bad or good, but it's negative over here, it's not really working for you. Correspondingly, over here, there's a positive, but you're so busy looking at the negative that you miss the positive, and the positive is usually the lesson that came from that experience, right? So, I mean, it's all, as I think he teaches quite effectively, that it's all in the balance.
Well, it's true, because if you ask me what's the worst period of my life, it's probably around that time, the 16 to 19. Yeah. What's the period of my life that I'm most grateful for, that I learnt the most from, is the same period.
Absolutely.
Now, we've got another question here from Andrew Rowe. Thanks, Andrew. Hi, Rachel. How would you recommend finding one's spiritual needs opposed to wants? Wow, that's a big question. How would you recommend finding one's spiritual needs opposed to wants? That's a good question.
Good on you, Andrew.
So, it's really quite challenging for me to answer that without getting a bit of clarification from you about what you actually are asking. But what I'm getting is you're wanting to know that when you tap into your shining light here, when you tap into that core purpose or that higher vibration in your passion, how would you identify whether it's really your intuition and your truth and who you really are and your higher purpose, or whether it's just something that you want and it's kind of ego driven, so it's fear driven? Is that, correct, she's written. Okay, cool. Okay. Actually, I spoke to a friend about this the other day. She went to a life coach, and the life coach called it your okay, it's totally slipped out of my mind. But basically, the life coach that she saw split ego into two parts. It split ego into ego, which is fear-driven, and ego, which is positive. The ego, which is positive, was more, it was still ego, but it was more like the positive ego, like, I want to do things for other people. So even though you're wanting to do things for other people, it's because it makes you feel good. It makes you feel fulfilled. So that's still ego driven, because that's still driven from a space of identity and wanting, you know. But it's positive because it makes a difference, and it's good for you, good for others, and good for the greater good. So the way, I guess, to distinguish that would perhaps be through meditation, because I really feel that when you are truly connected to your higher source and your purpose, your highest vibration, the thing is, Andrew, it's always going to feel good. It's always going to feel good, so you're always going to want it. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with that significance or that feeling of you know, wanting something. Like, I really want to build an orphanage in Africa. And sometimes I ask myself, why do I want to do that? Like, there's part of me that is a spiritual desire. I feel like I was on this earth to make a difference, to use my voice to speak to people and to make a difference. But there is a strong desire that wants to actually build an orphanage. But why? And I have recognized that I think there's a bit of ego in there. It's I want to see the difference that I've made. I don't really care what other people think. It's not because I want pats on the back. I want to experience the happiness and the fulfillment of seeing those kids looked after. I want to feel like I made a difference and that I did something that was worthwhile on a physical level. So I feel that that is a want. It's not a spiritual need. The spiritual need, I think, is more going to be identified intuitively. I don't think there's a formula to that. I can kind of feel within myself when there's this path, and this is what I'm kind of here to do in this lifetime, is to speak and empower people with my voice. And then there's kind of these other opportunities that come up over here that are like shiny, but I know that that's for a different lifetime. It's not for this lifetime. Andrew, look, I hope that answered your question. We could talk for a whole hour about that topic alone.
In fact, what I was just thinking would be a really cool thing to do would be to actually talk a little bit more about the difference between need and want.
Okay.
Because need, when I hear that word need, it's kind of like, oh, I need something to make me feel better about myself. I mean, that's what I'm hearing, but that's my perception. But I think maybe next week we could maybe touch on that and expand a little bit more on that, because we're kind of running out of time. And
the other thing is, I mean, if you look at the word need and if you look at the word want, they're both very attached. They're words that have a lot of attachment in them.
That's right.
So I think we need to look at what really do we need as a human being, and just have, we should follow up, Andrew. Maybe you could give me a call. Yeah. Shall I give my phone number?
I've got his number.
Oh, you've got Andrew's number. Okay. Okay, great. Well, Andrew, let's have a talk during the week, and we can talk about that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, we're kind of coming more than quickly to the end of the webinar session. Before we go, if there's anything that is really important that we should touch on, let us know, because we're checking out the chat screen as we speak. In the meantime, I think it's important to say that next week Rachel's going to continue this discussion. We accessible, obviously, on the phone or by email, and we'll put that up on the screen once you're finished. And
we recorded tonight, so if you want to share this recording with other people who you think might benefit, then of course go for it. Thank you so much for listening in.
Yeah. And we'll hang on, what happened here? So we've gone.
Okay, thank you everybody. Good night.
See you next week.
Please be in contact if you need or want.